set to go out and raise their vastly oversubscribed $34 billion. So regulators in China pulled the plug on it at the last minute, took the rug out from under their feet. Jack Ma slammed, hit his chin, got a little dizzy and woozy because he made some controversial comments on stage with a bunch of Chinese regulators in the audience that caused them to not be on their Chinese New Year Christmas or card list. But yeah. Anyway, so it caused them to call him in for a last minute meeting. And that meeting, I guess, didn't go super well because magically all these new regulations came out over how payments have to be handled in China. And now Ant's IPO is currently TBD. What are your initial thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, from what I initially read, I mean, it wasn't all just, with that last minute stuff. That really just kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think they kind of knew there was going to be some regulations they would have to abide by, and it was a risky kind of deal. I mean, Ant Financial, from my understanding, is a huge part of the Chinese economy already, and would be an even bigger part if they get public. So they want to get this thing right, and I think from both sides, not just from Ant's side, but from Chinese government. So I think this is probably the right move. It's unfortunate in the short term, but I think long term this might be the correct thing. And I think you're probably going to touch on it here in a second, but I mean there's a good chance they still go public in the next coming months, trying to get this thing correct and get the regulations either changed or abide by them in a certain way. And yet to be seen. But I think it's just a small blip in the whole thing.
I agree. I think there's no way in hell they wouldn't let IPO. Like you said, it's too big. It's too important to people that live in China, where even less physical currency is used than in the U.S. And vastly less or more physical currency is used in Italy. I still have issues dating back to my last trip there, back when travel was a thing, because no one wanted to take credit cards. But anyway, so I don't really have a strong opinion on this. It largely screams of the state, the Chinese state, telling Jack Ma, "Hey, remember we're still the captain. You're not the captain now. We're still the captain."
Correct. Yeah.
And that's what this screams. And also tightening up how Ant Financial has been making money in the past, and maybe not making that avenue quite so easy. But like I said, they're still going to let it IPO. What some commentary I've heard elsewhere is how that actually this action, because it was kind of seen as petty, um, could harm China, just because you're going to see people not be willing to IPO in China because of this. Because this happened on the Shanghai part, not obviously the Singapore part. That because it was a dual IPO listing, but I believe Ant pulled it from both after Jack Ma's meeting with the Chinese regulators. So I think it's one of those we're just gonna have to see how this goes going forward. But in the end, I think it was largely hey, we're still the boss, know your place kind of deal, even if he is the
Sure.
11th richest man in the world, or was going to be after the IPO. That is now dead and gone.
Oh man, you're gonna get in trouble if you start trying to sing on this podcast.
Why do you think I kept it to one line?
Yeah, no, it's definitely gonna make other companies hesitant. I don't know if it'll put a full halt, but
No,
I,
not to a full halt. We're you read on here all about the age of two internets becoming a part of the just the reality of the world of the West versus China, basically, in terms of how there are
right.
copies of every successful, especially tech firms, that in the U.S. and other Europe, other Western nations, uh, in China, and they just have a duplicate there. And the U.S. companies aren't allowed to operate in China because they don't allow the Chinese government to see what they're, the back end of everything, which is a whole nother entirely separate podcast. Um, so no, I don't think it kills any other Chinese mega IPOs coming into the future, but I do think it's going to it is a cause for concern for other big conglomerate Chinese companies that are looking to IPO in Shanghai and Shenzhen.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it affects U.S. economy too much or us, these markets, but it could be a precedent for
Not
future
yet,
stuff.
but we are talking about, Alibaba owns a significant stake in Ant Financial, and Alibaba is the Chinese Amazon, which at some, it's going to keep growing just like Amazon's going to keep growing. And whether we like it or not, we're going to become more interconnected with China unless we go into a full on war with them. So pray that doesn't happen. Uh,
Knock on some wood, but
yeah. So we'll see going forward. Just kind of like what we said when Ant was prepping to IPO, but I don't think a financial services company that has a larger or would have had a larger market capitalization than J.P. Morgan can be ignored.
no, absolutely not. From both sides, yeah. I mean, China can't ignore that at all. It's going to have to be a deal, and gonna have to live with it, and kind of relinquish a little bit of power. It sounds like, but not all of it. Not that they initially would have. Um, I don't know the terms of the deal or the regulations really too much back and forth, but I'm sure that, like you said, it was a power struggle, and it will continue to be.
Yep. And it's no different here in the US. Always a power struggle between
Always power
big
struggle.
business and the state. But yeah,
Yeah,
that wraps up the latest on Ant Financial's failed IPO. That all we got?
that's all I got, man.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. Right, like, rate, subscribe, review, all of it, whatever the usual saying is. We're going to see y'all next time.